Hello, viewers. This is Major General Neelendra Kumar for the YouTube channel Lex Consilium Foundation and the playlist in Similia. Great pleasure in speaking to Mr. Raju Ramachandran, the Senior Advocate, one of the most illustrious and distinguished consuls practicing here in the Supreme Court with a busy practice. Thanks to you for having agreed at a short notice. Well, the matter is such that it made the headlines in Times of India and Indian Express, the two papers that I saw. It relates to a statement or a speech by Justice Ujjal Bhuyan at Pune. Now he is one of the respected judges of the Supreme Court. Stands at serial 18 out of 33 judges plus one Supreme Court, and came to the court in July 2023, will be here till 2029. Now, Justice Bhuyan flagged a matter relating to considerable importance. It has generated arguments and interest in the country. It related to a matter concerning one Justice Atul Sreedharan of Madhya Pradesh High Court, who is from Madhya Pradesh but was elevated in Jammu and Kashmir, came back to Madhya Pradesh, and while there in the May last, sitting as a judge, he took suo motu notice of something that had been spoken, and most of the people agree that it should not have been spoken by a BJP minister of the state government, Mr. Vijay Shah, and this was his utterances, which were apparently irresponsible, relating to one Colonel Sophia Qureshi. Now, this woman officer of Army, along with Air Force officer, were the spokesperson during the Op Sindoor. They had done commendable job, won public admiration. But the minister did not speak about this woman officer, Sophia Qureshi, in dignified terms, and that led to censure and order by Justice Sreedharan. Now, shortly thereafter, the government, and the government in this case means union government, took up a matter with the Collegium seeking his transfer. And he was transferred at the recommendation of the Collegium to Chhattisgarh High Court, and the apparently the decision of the Collegium relating to this transfer to Chhattisgarh is easily not discernible on the website. Maybe that I could not find it, it is there. And thereafter, there is another request for reconsideration of the earlier order to transfer him to Chhattisgarh, and consequent to which he was transferred to Allahabad High Court. And in that instance, the Collegium's decision on the website mentioned that it was at the behest of a request for reconsideration by the government. Now, Justice Bhuyan, a couple of days back, while speaking in Pune in a speech, he flagged this issue, and he says it's a matter of great concern. And I've got the papers here. He said that he slammed the Collegium for transfer on government nudge, and also said that government dictated transfer shows erosion of judiciary's autonomy. It led to a report in Times of India, a striking intrusion. Supreme Court judge flags government intervention in judicial transfers, and even an editorial in the Times of India. Now, some of the questions that are being asked are whether the government should have a say, whether the government is really concerned and should have a say in the appointment and transfer of judges, whether the independence of judiciary is actuality, reality, or it's a mere myth. This decision, does it call for introspection on the role, authority of the Collegium? Should the government have role or say in the transfer of judges? I already said that. Does the judiciary by such action stands compromised, and the Judge Justice Bhuyan had said that biggest threat to the independence of judiciary is from within. Now, within the parameters of such assertions, it would only be fair and reasonable to seek the views of Mr. Raju Ramachandran. How does he look at it as a senior advocate with considerable standing in the Supreme Court? All yours.
Thank you, General. In the limited time that we have, let's not go into this larger question of the collegium, because the way you initially framed it was whether the government should have a say in the appointment of judges, etc. I don't think we are really
Yes,
discussing the
we leave
collegium
that
system.
apart.
We are confining ourselves to the speech of Justice Bhuyan and the context in which he made it. He didn't take the name of Justice Atul Sreedharan, but obviously that was the context in which he made these widely publicized remarks. Now, before coming to the case of Justice Atul Sreedharan, in the limited context of transfer of judges, it is necessary to offer a small clarification. It would not be correct to say, as Justice Bhuyan has been reported to have said, that the government has no role at all in the matter of transfer of judges, because transfer is decided by the judiciary in the interest of administration of justice. That is correct. The primary role is that of the judiciary. But I would say that the executive does have a limited role in pointing out things to the collegium which may not be within the knowledge of the collegium. I'll give you a couple of instances. Now, for instance, if the collegium decides to transfer a judge from state A to state B, and the government says it would not be advisable to do so because in state B, he has many relatives with business interests who have litigations pending in the High Court. This fact may not be within the knowledge of the collegium because the idea was only to transfer him out of a particular High Court. So, this would be a useful input and a necessary input to give. Similarly, a judge's family may have political connections in some other case, some other state, which could also have an impact on his functioning. And that may be an input which needs to be given to the collegium. So let's not read this as written in stone that the executive has no role at all to play in the transfer of judges. But it is in this limited context, a couple of instances of which I have outlined. Now let's come to the specific case of Justice Atul Sreedharan. Now, we must not forget the career of Justice Atul Sreedharan from the beginning as a judge. He became a judge in the Madhya Pradesh High Court in Indore, which is in fact his hometown. He on his own asked for a transfer out of his state because, let's not forget, public memory is short, because his daughter had started practice before the Indore bench. And that is the reason he gave when he wrote to the Supreme Court Collegium asking for a transfer. It was at his own instance, interest of administration of justice, he himself highlighted. And like a good soldier, he accepted a transfer to whatever place the Collegium decided. And it was Jammu and Kashmir. It was the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. I'm not remembering whether the transfer was, no, it was after it ceased to be a state. Now, there he performed his duties admirably. And that was the first cause for discomfort to the executive because he took a strong stand in habeas corpus cases and post 2019 habeas corpus cases
Yes,
assumed great importance in
yes.
J&K. It was because of his strong stand that he was transferred to the Madhya Pradesh High Court, to his parent High Court again, though not to Indore from where he came, but to the principal seat at Jabalpur, where his daughter was not practicing, obviously. But one can see the hidden hand of the executive in that transfer back to Madhya Pradesh in the first place. The collegium resolution may not have said so, as it now
Okay.
says. So the first transfer was clearly in public interest because he sought it because his daughter was practicing. The second transfer from J&K back to Madhya Pradesh was not for any discernible public interest, but apparently because he proved to be too strong and independent a judge. Now, the transfer from Madhya Pradesh to Chhattisgarh also makes one suspect executive interference or executive influence. Because what was noteworthy during his tenure in Madhya Pradesh was his taking this powerful minister to task. Soon after that, he is transferred to Chhattisgarh. That was certainly not in the interest of administration of justice. And then the executive, and this is where the collegium, was it being naive or was it just wanting to be transparent? One doesn't know. But it sort of told the whole story that it was in the instance of the executive that we modified the recommendation to go to Chhattisgarh to a modification to go to Allahabad. And it was so obvious because in Chhattisgarh, he would have been a member of the Collegium. He would have had a hand in appointments to the Chhattisgarh High Court. That is something which the executive obviously didn't want. And so you send him to Allahabad at number 5, where he won't be a member of the Collegium. This is not a case of the Collegium acting on some useful input from the executive of the kind which I had outlined in the beginning of our discussion. This was so clearly a case of the executive meddling, and this was so clearly a case of the Collegium self confessedly succumbing. And therefore, Justice Ujjal Bhuyan was absolutely right. Hats off to him for calling this out.
Now,
But
just a
before,
minute.
yes, there's one more little thing which I
Yeah.
want to say. Can I say that? And then you can
Yes.
ask me your question. There's something interesting about Justice Bhuyan himself. He had become a very senior judge of the Guwahati High Court. He had reached number 3, and inexplicably, he was transferred to the Bombay High Court at number 15.
1-5. Yes.
1-5. And there was a protest by the Guwahati bar. On the one hand, a transfer to Bombay looks very good because Bombay is a very prestigious high court, premier
Yes.
high court, etc. But to transfer a judge at number 3 to number 15 was obviously because some people had become uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so there was a protest by the Guwahati bar. But then, because of his seniority in Guwahati, he did become a chief justice in Telangana. And then from there, he has come here. Fortunately, his elevation to the Supreme Court was not opposed by the executive, or perhaps it was, if it was opposed also, perhaps the collegium stood its ground and he came here. So all that I'm saying is Justice Bhuyan is personally also not a stranger to possible executive
Yes.
interference.
Now, one
Yes,
point here I would request you. You indicated that there may be reasonable grounds in the interest of justice which the executive should be able, should be expected, should be allowed to bring to the notice of the collegium. Now,
absolutely.
now, that could be, say, to remove a judge from a particular high court, like, say, for example, habeas corpus petitions in Jammu Kashmir, he was uncomfortable. Should the executive head have a hand that move him from here and move him to Madhya Pradesh, or move
No,
him to Chhattisgarh, or not move him to Chhattisgarh, send him to Allahabad? That's the larger question in this
no.
context.
In this context, obviously, no. You can't, the executive can't ask the collegium to move a judge
Yes,
only because of bold judicial decisions. So, in other words, a judge is being sought to be moved for doing his constitutional duty. That is wholly unacceptable. That is
yes,
wholly impermissible. It is a different matter if Judge X in a particular high court is known to be hobnobbing with local politicians. If
okay,
there's something like that,
yes,
that also the collegium may not come to know on its own.
yes,
That's a different
yeah,
matter.
that's
But
fine.
none of that applies here.
Yes. Now, therefore, given these facts as are in the public notice and those which are otherwise, say, you have brought out here, how do you look at this situation, this matter? And then I
Uh,
would ask you, request you, that how do you see the matter then progressing? What would be the end of it? To that extent, your speculation.
yes, it can only be speculation because though I believe in astrology, astrology is not going to help here. Um, no, you can see the story playing out. He has gone to Allahabad. He's at number 5. if they don't want him to be part of the Allahabad Collegium
Yes.
in the way in which they didn't want him to be part of the Chhattisgarh Collegium,
Yes.
then the only thing I can think of is another transfer so that he continues, another transfer of someone senior to Allahabad
Yes.
so that Justice Sridharan continues to be at number 5.
Yes.
Or if they want to punish him further, get 2 or 3 more people, send him down to 7 or 8 in Allahabad itself.
Yes.
Obviously, he and the executive are not the best of friends,
Yes.
but the damage has been done. I mean, there's no question of retrieving this damage now.
Okay.
The
So,
collegium having acquiesced
yes.
in this wholly illegitimate request of the government, I don't see how the situation can be remedied in the near future
Okay.
and how justice justice can be done to Justice Sridharan. But I must admire Justice Sridharan for accepting this transfer and not resigning in a huff. Because if he did so, he would have played into the hands of those who wanted him out. As a true judge who has taken an oath to the Constitution, I think he has told himself that he will do justice wherever he is sent. Today in Allahabad, there can be one more transfer. You may send him to the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court, not the principal seat. You may send him to Madurai. But I think, from what I can see of Justice Sridharan, of the metal of which he is made, I think he will stay as a judge till the day he retires, doing justice wherever he is sent.
Now, since you indicated that justice has not been done to Justice Sridharan, what, according to you, in your perception, is the reason that the Collegium exceeds or accepts the decisions, the recommendations, or the dictate of the executive?
General, you and I are not naive people. Do we need to spell this out? Should we dishearten our younger viewers
No, the reason
by
is
telling
that
them,
yes, the reason is that Collegium is not the constituents of the Collegium are not permanent. They keep changing. And
yes,
despite that, the sum and total, the response of the Collegium is appears to be subservient. Why is it so?
now let me give a more charitable interpretation.
Yes.
Now, ultimately, the judiciary, through the collegium, is dependent on the executive to make judicial appointments.
Okay.
The collegium can't recommend its names and then issue a writ of mandamus to the government to make those appointments.
To
And
see
now,
them
this
through.
governor's case, which
Yes.
we discussed recently, the governor's case, which we discussed recently on this forum only, made it clear that one constitutional authority
Yes.
in such matters of high constitutional
Yes.
principle, etc., will not issue a mandamus. So, if they can't do that, then unfortunately, a little give and take happens.
Okay.
Accommodation. Now, how much of that accommodation can be thought of as reasonable and acceptable, something which is needed to permit some play in the joints, and how much of that accommodation is brazen, depends on the facts of each case. But to come back to your question, which was, why do you think the collegium succumbs? I am attempting a charitable answer.
Thank you very much
Thank you,
and
General.
for your time at such a short notice. And I'm sure that our audience would benefit from your wise counsel. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Pleasure talking.